Hey guys, it's Steve back here again. We're here in my basement pub and we're talking about real estate stories. And this week's real estate story is basically sort of like a horror story, let's call it, in real estate. And this is what we don't want to have for clients. A property that we had on the market listed, the buyer's agent brings in a buyer and then the deal doesn't close on closing, which has a domino effect with all the closings shortly after. So our property and maybe 2 or 3 properties down the line with different buyers and sellers. Because in real estate, everybody can knock out a deal. I gotta be honest, it's paperwork. If you're not, especially in today's market, there's limited amount of negotiations because of the bidding wars and all the craziness that's currently happening right now. If you're a listing agent right now, basically skill levels at a bare minimum. That's because of the quick market that we're currently in. But let's look at a market where you actually need to be skillful, where you have to hustle and you have to have negotiating skills and you have to be on top of the buyer and the seller. You have to be clever in a sense to close deals. So we're gonna go right into the story. And this story was based on, I think 2018 or 2019 to be exact. It was basically a property we listed right away. We listed the property aggressively compared to all the other sales. I kind of warned my clients, hey, listen, we can go aggressive. Your house does have amazing features and benefits, but it is aggressive to the market considering the last sale. But let's put it on the market and, at worst case, we can always, lower the price as we're going. And, everybody was agreed on the price and also the time frame. If you know me, I'm going to give you everything up front. So I said, this is going to probably be a 30-day process because of the aggressiveness of the price. So just, settle in. It's going to take some time to do it to get you these numbers. Fair enough, everyone's in agreement after we sign the contracts and we get everything listed. But shortly after, a lot of pressure from the seller. Seller already anxious after day one, how come we didn't get an offer? And it was just pretty aggressive on their end. It was already thinking the property was going to sell when I just told them 24 hours prior that it's going to be a 30-day sale because of the aggressiveness of the price. So day 3, a lot of pressure from the seller, wanting to get it sold a lot quicker than I originally told them it would sell in, and we get an offer in. And was it a godsend or was it a nightmare on paper? We don't know yet. We negotiate this deal, and the first telltale when the buyer's agent or the buyer's dealing with fraud is this, and I'll tell you exactly this to look for. When the buyer's agent is negotiating on behalf of the buyer without communicating to them, especially with price, this is a big warning. Stay away. You should, right at this point here, you should actually get this buyer qualified yourself because it's going to be a shit show later on closing. We negotiate with this buyer's agent. She basically negotiated the whole deal without talking to her clients and sent me an offer. My clients accepted. I kind of weighed the risk on it. This is way too easy. There should have been more negotiations on part, someone to just give you full asking and all the terms and conditions that you want. Usually this is a telltale for some future disaster. Let's fast forward. I think it's 2 to 3 months, down the road, we're set for closing. Now we're 3 days prior to closing. The agent calls me. We have an issue with financing. We're going to send in another bank in to do another appraisal to see what's happening. Okay, fair enough. Let's figure it out. Let's see if we can get another bank in. Let's try to get this going. And this story is quite funny because even a number on paper looks great. If you think about a white picket fence in a beautiful suburban area and you look at the deep rot underneath it, if you're actually panning down with your camera and you see like the rot below the soil and all the worms, this is exactly that deal. We get it reappraised, or they reappraise it, another bank. Now it's a B bank, naturally. Before it was an A bank, now we're going to a B bank. And now they're short in funds. So basically this bank's gonna come up with 65% of the mortgage, and we're missing about, let's say 15% rather. So these guys were coming up 65%. We needed a lender pitch in another 15%, which I didn't know at the time. So now we're in damage control mode. I have to figure something out. We got 72 hours prior to closing. We have maybe 3 to 4 different closings that are gonna be interrupted because of this property if it doesn't close. So now I'm in damage control mode. What I had to do now is shut down my business for 72 hours. And that's exactly what we did. I had my assistant handle the business and I just basically disappeared and delved into this deal to make sure we can kind of get this thing to close. So now we're communications with the buyer's agent, communications with his lawyer, our lawyer, and their mortgage agent. Dealing with all these people, all these different professionals through the real estate agent. I'm not getting answers fast enough through the agent. I can see she's fumbling and she's panicking. Kick her out of the way. I asked for her client's number directly, which she gave it to me, which is awesome. Dealing directly with the buyer themselves. In real estate, it's not ethical. We are not allowed to talk to the other party without being brokered by their realtor. But in this situation, their realtor gave up and gave me full reins, which was awesome. And this is what we need to do to get this thing all bridged, because I had a plan to get this thing finished off. So now dealing directly through the buyer, and she's panicking because now she's saying that she was put in a position by this realtor where this was never going to work. And then finding out that they promised her X on the sale of their house, which they didn't get, and they already had a second mortgage on their first property, which nobody told me, and which obviously I'm not privy to that information. And then ultimately finding out that in order to close this property, she needs an A bank, like a first lender, and also second lender to bridge the other gap. I think it was about $115,000 to $120,000 someone had to lend her on the property. And to be honest with you, at this rate, there was no more meat on the bones. If you're going to lend out money, it needs to be an 80-20 rule. You're going to lend on 80% of the value of the property, not, and you need to have that 20% meat. So now we're probably at 90-10 at this point here with this additional $110,000 to $20,000 into it. It's not even a viable deal for any money lenders. It's even put even more strength and more pressure on the actual deal. So now dealing with the buyer, which is crying to me, and also my client's crying, and everyone's very emotional, and it's just, everyone's, you know, in a very dark place right now. And basically the buyer gave me the number to the mortgage broker. I spoke to the mortgage broker, and this is again how I found out about the second mortgage. He was good for 65%. He goes, you come up with the other money, we're good to go. I think it was an additional 15 to 20% on a private. We can close this deal. So now what do I got to do? I got to talk to the private lender, which is basically a loan shark in a suit. So now talking to the loan shark and trying to convince him on the value of this property and the future value of this property, because at this point here, he's at a 90-10 ratio, which is, if anybody's lending money, that you never do that. It just doesn't make sense. This can go bankrupt and you're left with nothing, because after the bank pays out, they pay out the first mortgage to the bank, the second mortgage gets absolutely nothing, so it's a huge risk. Basically convinced him to get us this money. And what happens is during this process, not only am I dealing with the buyer's mortgage agent, their loan shark, their lawyer directly, because he wasn't being consistent, so we had to show up at his office a few times and actually talk to him in person to make sure we get this thing cleared up. Dealing with our lawyer, dealing with our clients they've never went through this type of stress, you know, before where they have so much commitment and so much money on the line that anything can happen. They can lose a lot of stuff or being sued. Let's even bring this one more degree, okay? I'm getting calls from the actual seller to the property that my clients bought. So this property that my clients bought was purchased through a family member. Basically, the seller of this property was a guy I went to high school with, so I had some sort of relationship with, so he felt the need to call me during the process because his property was at jeopardy not to close, and he actually bought something. So now I'm dealing with, you know, I think it's like 5 to 6 or 7 people all together. But basically what happens at the end, thank God I got it all to work, pulling the strings to all these deals to get it to some point. We ended up closing, which is fantastic. Again, this is one of those deals, if you see a telltale where an agent is just negotiating on their client's behalf without talking to them, avoid the deal. It's better to get less on paper in something that closed because it's a real deal rather than something that looks great on paper and doesn't close. And this is my real estate story for the month. If you guys have any questions, always direct message me. Catch you on the next one. Ciao.